The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team WSN.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode, the final episode of the regular season of State of the Jungle, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host, as always. We got Evan in the building. We've got Logan in the building. We've got Jimmy on the 1s and 2s. And Daniel is doing what he always does, guys. He's in California. He's vacationing, making us pick up all the slack and all the hard work. Bengals got a big game this week, boys. Bengals got a huge game this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh on a Saturday. And the Bengals are fighting for their playoff lives. But the Bengals also need help to get into said playoffs. The Bengals need the Dolphins to lose. I'm sorry, the Dolphins and Snoop Utley to lose against Aaron Rodgers. Evan, isn't it crazy how it all comes full circle? The one guy you are very critical of, you need to be his biggest fan this week. If you want the Bengals to make the playoffs.
I haven't said a word about Aaron Rodgers since what was that? Like last offseason when everybody was talking about how great he was going to be, and I just didn't see it. And people called me a hater.
Well, now he's the best.
I can respect the player and hate the person off the field, but that was always Aaron Rodgers. But this year, man, like he has statistically been worse than Sam Darnold and maybe Zach Wilson, but definitely Sam Darnold was for the Jets. So if you're wondering, the Jets, do they have a chance? Why are they're underdogs at home against Snoop Huntley, aren't they? That'll tell you why.
But you still need that guy to do well this week.
If you want, it's a matter of perspective.
It's a matter of
it's a matter of perspective.
Never to be good enough.
So the Bengals need, I mean, not Evan, the Bengals need.
The Bengals, yes.
The Bengals need Aaron Rodgers to be the old Aaron Rodgers.
100%.
Right? Then you also need the Chiefs, who are the Bengals' best friends, of course, to beat the Broncos while playing their backups. And then, before we even get to that, the Bengals need to be able to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's a big week. It's a big week. It's also a new year. So with it being a new year, will the Bengals find a way to find some new year luck? Will they be able to find a way to sneak into the playoffs? We'll talk about all of that. Before we jump into all that, do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Boys, it's been a hell of a year. It's been a hell of a year, not in a good way, but you know,
some bright spots.
There have been some bright spots, right? You know, Bengals found their running back. I'm talking about show-wise, Bengal-wise. Overall, I had a great year. I had an awesome year. But I would say, obviously, the season's been a little bit underwhelming. Bright spot was last week, right? Bengals beat a team, right, that had a winning record. They beat a team, right, that people said, this team might knock the Bengals off. They were able to knock off a couple other demons. They were able to get to 500. The one thing that evaded them all season long, they finally got to 8-8, beat the Denver Broncos. Boys, I want to touch on that game a little bit more. What were you guys' thoughts on the Bengals versus the Broncos game? Logan, let's start this off with you.
Man, you know, I think going into the game, I tweeted about it a few times. I've seen a bunch of other people do it as well. There's not many teams that are as polar opposites as the Broncos and the Bengals were. And I think that was honestly on full display in a bunch of different ways. We saw the Broncos O-line completely dominate for most of the game, allowed them to do whatever they wanted, while the Bengals, again, offensive line struggled a lot. You know, but at the end of the day, the coolest and most encouraging thing to see, this Broncos defense is very, 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 very good. Their secondary is good. Their T-line's good. Their linebackers are good. That is an amazing defensive unit back there. And the Bengals offense continued to look unbelievable. Joe Burrow looked amazing. T. Higgins went absolutely ballistic. Jamar Chase still topped 100 yards. Mike Gesicki played his part. Yoshi,
Wait, say that again.
Mike Gesicki played his
One more
part.
time. One more
Mike
time.
Gesicki played
Okay.
his part, a huge part at that. Andre Yoshivas career high in yards. Chase Brown looked good. We had Cam Grady getting involved on the first play of the game. Everybody was doing their job and contributing to a massive offensive outburst again against one of the best defensive units in the entire NFL. No matter how much we can't run the ball in the short yardage, no matter how bad our red zone efficiency was, no matter how bad the offensive line was in totality against the Broncos, the offense, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown dominated the game, play in and play out. It was phenomenal. Like usually, when we play some of these teams, when we put up these high offensive numbers, it's all their defense isn't very good. They have somebody we can clearly pick on, this and that. Like it's still glad that we did it, but there's not many holes in that Broncos defense. On the offensive side for them, there's plenty of holes you can talk about. But the Broncos defense is unbelievable. And we made them look extremely, extremely, extremely average. And there's no better sign about your team. All of those guys are, essentially your core. It's a great feeling. It was an awesome game, top to bottom. It was thrilling. Yes, the defense let up some big plays, but Broncos took their shots and hit it. It was an awesome game to watch.
Yeah, no. The second half was a lot of fun to watch. The first half was a little bit spotty, but I think you hit on a lot of good things there. Just wanted to emphasize it. The offensive line keeps being a problem, but it is kind of a lot of the same characters. Alex Kappa is really struggling, and I think the book is kind of closing on him for his Bengals career. Cody Ford, Devin Conklin are just out there trying to survive and hold on for dear life. And it seems like that's where most of the pressure is coming from, is those three guys, which kind of overshadows Orlando Brown Jr., Marius Mims, Ted Karras, even having some pretty good games the last couple weeks, including the Broncos game. I think the biggest takeaway from this was this is much of what we saw from the offense throughout the season, which is despite the mistakes that the team makes, Joe Burrow is just going to be Superman enough to make up for all of it. And that's mistakes on him too. That's missed throws on him. That's drops from Jamar Chase. That's drops from T. Higgins. That's, failure to execute properly on blocks for offensive linemen. That's on game management and play calling for coaching. Like I don't want to feel like I'm singling one entity out in here, because Joe Burrow is even included in that. But the crazy plays he makes are insane, and he's so good. He can go out there and have 2 or 3 game-winning drives in the time. Usually it would take one person to get one. So defense doing just enough, which is what you're going to need if you are going to sneak into the playoffs and be able to compete with anybody, is going to be, hey, we'll be able to have that one drive where we get that 3 and out. We'll be able to have that one drive where we come away with the fumble or the interception to buy our offense a little bit more room to go out and get us the victory. Like that we're seeing so much of the younger guys. Love what I've seen from Jordan Battle, aside from dropping the ball right before he crossed the goal line there on that intercept. But outside of that, everything has looked encouraging from a lot of these young guys. McKinley Jackson's had a couple flashes. Chris Jenkins had 1 or 2 as well. Miles Murphy's had a couple good pass rush opportunities as well. So very encouraging to see Cedric Jackson, right? Cedric Johnson, excuse me. Also coming up a couple times. So good to see them. I think some people may not want Geno Stone back next year because of his first half of the season performance. I think in the last 3 weeks, it's been a lot more stable. And I don't know that the team would move on from him necessarily like they would from a Sheldon Rankins or an Alex Kappa. That's probably something that, excuse me, is a decision made in the front office. But I think it's encouraging in the sense that, hey, he's 25, he's young, and he looked a little bit better in the second half of the season. If they are going to keep him, that's encouraging. But I think Jordan Battle has definitely made kind of his point of he deserves to be on the field, period.
Yeah. A lot was said there. A lot of stuff I agree with. I think that the one takeaway for me for the game was, to Evan's point, he talked about the young guys playing. Cedric Johnson, he's a motor.
Mhm.
That guy has a motor on him, right? And I think that's sort of the juice you were hoping to see a little bit in the pass rush department, right?
Mhm.
It's easy to say, well, why did you play the guys earlier? And I agree with that sentiment. I agree with that.
Right.
But I also think that there has to be some growing for them. There has to be, some teaching involved. And I think that sometimes, even though the results, we start to see them put it together towards the end of the season, maybe they didn't look that polished or that ready to begin the season with. There were several games where Cedric Johnson was inactive. And I was even one of the guys saying, hey, I saw some flashes from him preseason. I'd like to see him on the football field.
You need young D-line depth.
Right.
Yeah, see what you got.
And I think that, especially with Camp Sample going out, I would have liked to see him a little bit earlier in the season, but I also understand the optics and why we probably didn't see him. There's a lot that went wrong this year. There's a lot that we're going to get into, but I thought that the Broncos game was the closest thing we've seen to the Bengals of old in a while, right? The defense making timely stops, Jermaine Pratt making timely turnovers. I'm kind of conflicted with him. At one point, I was thinking like maybe you move off that guy. But since the defense has been a little bit more simplified,
so hit or miss, man.
Yeah, man. Since the defense has been a little bit more simplified, it makes everyone look a lot better. You start to feel maybe there is something there still. Maybe you get guys thinking a little less, right? Maybe there is something there with Geno Stone. Maybe there is. Well, I know there's something there with Jordan Battle, but maybe there is something there with some of these guys that we've kind of been talking about. One thing that stood out to me was McKinley Jackson, Chris Jenkins. I think those are two guys that you could really, really build this thing around. I would have liked to, and I don't know if we talked about it, the Bengals obviously were in on Mathis, right?
Yeah.
Another Alabama guy, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
For me, I think about it and I say, I say to myself, maybe these are the two guys the Bengals are going to build on, around the future, but you get another veteran in. I don't know if I see BJ Hill back in Cincinnati. I don't know if I see that. And I'm not saying I feel one way or the other towards it. I definitely think you need an infusion of youth amongst the defense at all three levels.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of what this is going to look like. I don't think that there is one clear-cut answer of, what the Bengals should. One thing I will say is I think the pass rush is something that needs to be fixed 100%. And I'm talking about edge. Obviously, I want them to add another interior defensive line guy. Sure, that's great. But I think what's really, really missing is that guy that to stabilize pressure alongside Trey Hendrickson going forward. And we'll talk about all of that. I'm sure we'll get into that. I want to talk about the Steelers game that is coming up. Bengals versus Steelers game. There ain't too much more to harp on about it. We faced them early in the season. We knew what it was. We knew what the Bengals needed to do in order to get a victory. And I feel like a lot of those same stuff applies. It's going to be a little interesting. With Chase Brown being injured, you don't know how that's going to change the running game or what the Bengals would like to do. I want to get you guys' overall thoughts though on this game, and what are some of the keys to victory for the Bengals, and how do we see this one playing out? Evan, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's you're going to have to. This has been a thing for the Bengals and Zach Taylor and the offense, or whoever the play caller designer is in that instance, right? Is performance in high leverage situations, whether that's fourth down, whether that's red zone. This entire game is a high leverage situation, right? And what do you not want to do in those situations, which we end up doing too often, is limiting Joe Burrow in some way, not allowing him to play to his full ability, not letting him throw the ball, read the field, make the defense wrong. You end up with multiple heavy looks running into a wall and, giving up plays, or, you get cute and you put Jamar Chase in the backfield and do fake tosses and things like that. You don't want to do that this game. You don't want to proverbially do the Jamar Chase fake toss. You want to if you're going to go out swinging. You've got Jamar Chase, you've got T. Higgins. You've seen what those guys have given you over the last 3-4 weeks, even the full season. If you're talking about Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, it's time to just take the safety rails off. Like, this is all you have to play for. Chase Brown's obviously dealing with a little bit of an injury as well. I see the Bengals offense just putting the pedal to the gas on this one and say, hey, Steelers offense, guess what? You're going to have to find a way to score 20-plus points this game with Russ playing the way he is, with, Pickens taking every other play off, let's just say, and having that inconsistency in their offense that they've really struggled to do. I think Jaylen Warren, for his occasional touches, has been one of their most consistent offensive explosive players. Najee Harris has largely been a volume monster, has been breaking more tackles and getting yards after contact, but they've still not found a way to reliably use him in an efficient manner down to down. Just the down to down efficiency has not been there for them. And with a passing game that's been lackluster and inconsistent, and that already kind of predicates itself on the deep shots and the explosives, that makes it really difficult to keep pace with an offense like the Bengals that can operate between the 20s so well, in the intermediate so well, in the short area so well, to where they're not living and dying by the explosive play, but those explosive plays are still a threat to happen. So I see pedal to the floor for the Bengals offense. Defense is going to be much more of the same, where it's, hey, we're going to challenge Russell Wilson to try and throw for 300 yards against us. Good luck. Like, we're going to get that one interception, that one fumble, that one 3-and-out stop that we need to give our offense the ability to go win the game for us, because I don't see the way that the defense wins the game for you. So yeah, when I'm looking at that, I'm trying to frustrate Pickens, jam him at the line, piss. Half the time, he doesn't even try and get off press.
Right. No.
Like, he just gives up. If
If
it's not an instant win, he literally will just give up on the route,
Right.
and just not run it. So piss him off early, frustrate him, get them looking at each other on the sideline and yelling at each other and dealing with their bullshit, right? Like, and it sucks because Pickens is a very, very insanely talented player, and it's just, we got a Jermaine Burton, right? Like, we know, right? Like, it's sometimes you're just trying to figure out the personalities of some of these strong-willed wide receivers, let's say. But yeah, I definitely see the offense just pushing the pedal. Defense, you just got to frustrate them. Don't let them gash you in the run game with Najee and with Jaylen Warren, and really just put the pressure on them that way. I think that's going to be your best path to victory. And I really have trouble seeing how the Steelers offense can find a way to score more than 21 points if you can get past that point, like, reliably. I mean, it's the Bengals defense, so anything's possible, but you know, the higher the offense scores, the less likely I think it is the Steelers are able to keep pace.
Yeah, to keep it a little simple, I guess, just exactly what Evan said. Last time we played them, the Steelers scored 40-something points. The odds of that happening again, to me, are very, 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 very low. And if they do happen, then this isn't a team that deserves to be in the playoffs, point blank, period. You can't allow a poor Steelers offense to score 40 on you twice with your season on the line both times, especially at a higher degree now than it was the first time you played. You know, and I think that's kind of why I feel so confident. The Bengals have been playing so good. The offense has been clicking. The defense is playing a little bit better. And if the defense just played a little bit better the first time they played, then we're in a completely different situation than where we are right now. Yes, the Steelers scored 40-something points the first time. But again, I don't know how they do that again. Like, it's not an overly talented group from top to bottom. Pickens is good. They have some, individual talent here and there, but schematically, fit, everything, all in all together, just, it's not a very good unit. And again, unfortunately, the Bengals defense is not a very good unit either. But when you account for how good the Bengals offense has been, there's nothing that the Steelers have to suggest that they're going to slow that down. They couldn't do it the first time. One of the best defenses in the league they just played last week couldn't do it then. So, like, what is there to show you that it's going to slow up? I don't really think there is anything there. It's just the common sense answer is the Steelers probably aren't going to score 40 points again. And if they don't score 40 points again, they're probably not going to win the game. I know that's a very easy and simple way to look at it, but sometimes that's all it has to be. The Steelers aren't a team that scores a lot of points. They win defense. They time control the football. They eat the clock. They run the ball well. They take their shots. When they hit their shots, they're a pretty good team. Avoid them from hitting their shots. Like, unfortunately, the Broncos hit their shots. They hit their shots to Mims twice. Mims made a great play at the end of the game, too. If you just prevent those two plays from happening, the Broncos score 10 points. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to be the same kind of style that the Steelers are going to play. Run, deep shot. Run, deep shot. And you just got to prevent them from making their shots, and the Bengals should have every opportunity they want to win the game with how great the offense has been. I just don't expect that to stop now.
You know what I need? I need Geno Stone to be decisive.
Yep.
I need Geno Stone to be decisive. Aside from this past week, the last 3 weeks, he had been playing very, very solid ball. And I think that when he is decisive, right, and he doesn't overthink things, he's usually in the right spot. When you got shown on the film, Geno Stone is usually in the right spot, just a step behind sometimes. And I felt like that's what happened in the Broncos game. He got hit with the deep shot to Mims.
Yeah.
He knew where he was supposed to be, but he hesitated a little bit, slow
Mm-hmm.
to react. And unfortunately, Geno Stone does not have the athleticism to make up for when he is out of like he's a guy, he has very good instincts on where the ball is, but his athleticism slows him down. If he does not know where the play is going, he's typically going to be a step behind. Ideally, what I like to see is I like to see a little bit more aggressive Geno Stone. Even if you're wrong, be wrong.
Yeah.
Don't be right, but be slow to react, and then you still get beat with a deep shot. It's okay to mess up. You're going to mess up. Everything can't go perfect in the NFL. But what I found is when Geno Stone is decisive, he looks like a different safety. And I felt like playing in the Baltimore. Let me just give a little bit insight. A little bit. I think playing in the Baltimore scheme made him feel like he could be a little more decisive when you have the guys that you have up front, guys like Roquan Smith, guys like Marlon Humphrey, right? Guys like that. It allows you to feel like maybe you can be a little more aggressive, but when you're playing behind Josh Newton, Cam Taylor-Britt, right? Respectfully, I'm just being honest.
No pass rush.
No pass rush. You probably hesitate a little bit. You probably don't feel like you probably don't feel like you have the best shot at, like, if you do make a mistake, these guys will kind of cover you, if you will. So you kind of pride yourself on trying to overthink out there and be in the right positioning. And if you're not, well, damn, the team probably is going to falter. So that's just my thought process. I feel like Mike Hilton has played a very, very good ball lately. From a blitzing perspective, from a tackling perspective, you got to bring. It's a real question now. Should the Bengals bring him back? I think they should bring him back at least on a year deal. Personally, I think it can make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. I think that the product of what you've seen has been has been pretty good. I'm reading some of the comments right now. I don't know if this is Geno Stone's burner account, but someone says, "Stop blaming Geno for the scrubs on defense. He's our best defensive back. Let's be honest. He can't put out all the fires. These guys got to do their jobs. He's been making plays as a blitzer. In coverage, Geno is our best defensive back." I disagree with that personally. I think when he's decisive, he could be our best.
There's truth to, like, he can't make up for everybody, and that there's mistakes other places that make things difficult, right? Like if someone takes a bad angle and he's supposed to be, he's supposed to be the force defender for some reason, like, and someone else takes a bad angle or isn't there, then that makes him look dumb if the force defender isn't there and suddenly he's like, wait, but there's supposed to be someone there, like I'm at the right angle, but it makes him look dumb, right? But there are plenty of plays where he's taking bad angles, bad tackling angles, like really bad angles. So like he's been better in the last couple weeks, and I said that at the top of the show.
Geno's our best defensive back is interesting to me. Listen, I think when Geno is decisive, he looks a completely different safety. But you can't say a guy is our best defensive back when he has an assignment, knows what said assignment is, as the free safety, to not let himself get burnt, and then he hesitates back there. And I mean, this happens routinely week in and week out. If you ask me, I think that Jordan Battle is a better safety than Geno Stone. Respectfully, I think Jordan Battle. What makes Jordan Battle better is his decisiveness and how. I personally think he's a tone setter for us on defense, and this is very similar to what he did at the University of Alabama. We're seeing it now with the Bengals, which is why everybody was like, "Hey, listen, why hasn't this guy been seeing the field a lot sooner?" That's just my thought. That's just my thought process. Logan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, safety is an extremely hard position to play, and I know I don't necessarily want to say people don't acknowledge how hard it is to play.
It's hard to quantify the impact because they're off screen for the entire game.
And then
you don't see
when they mess up, they mess up. It's similar to corner. When you get beat, who gets beat. It's just similar to safety. If somebody, if he just takes a half-inch bad angle, he might not be the one that even messed up his job that much. But he's the last person that gave by. So now everybody's like, boom, he gave up the touchdown. He sucks. And he's been bad. He showed that he can be good. We know what he was before he came here. We know what he was the first half of the year. But we also know he has a better track record than what he played during that time. He's also shown it 3 of the last 4 weeks. But you can't expect a fan base to just go all in on somebody when they've gotten more bad play than good. If he continues to, bounce back now, play good football, stay here next year and builds on those couple good weeks that he's had, people will love him. Everybody was excited about him coming here. There wasn't anybody that was like, oh no, what are we doing signing Geno Stone? It was exciting. People were excited for it, but we haven't necessarily got the play that we expected. He's shown it. Now we just need it all to come together and be consistent. And a lot of his issues could come from
He has the talent.
Yeah.
He definitely has the
Yeah.
talent. I think the athleticism is lacking personally.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not something you could really like change too much of.
Yeah.
And M says to me, Battle is a strong safety. Have you seen Geno in coverage?
He's played
I'm going-
164 snaps at free safety
Yeah.
this season.
Yeah.
Jordan Battle has.
Jordan Battle has. Yes,
Yeah.
he has.
He's played everywhere. For Nick
Right.
Saban, he played strong
He played
safety,
everywhere. He played
nickel,
strong
free
safety.
safety.
So, and then he says to us, watch some more games, bro.
Sounds
Well-
like you need to watch the games, bro.
Yeah, I'll take your input, and I'll watch some more games, brother. I clearly have not, and I clearly have been wrong about Jordan Battle's play versus Geno Stone. You said Geno Stone is our best defensive back. All right, brother. Then you must know something that I don't know, and I apologize for that. I'll make sure I do my job, and I'll start watching more games, and I'll get back to you. You know everything.
It is easy to disagree about things. And I say this all the time with the wide receivers, right? Because I feel like any day, any game, any season that any of the top 3 to 5 wide receivers could be their year, their
Yes,
day, their
yes.
game, right? So I'm willing to hear anybody say that. But it's when you come through with the absolutes of saying, hey,
No doubt about
there's
it.
no doubt it's so clear. What are you looking at? Well, you better have the facts to back it up in that case. And
Yeah,
that was just an unfortunate swing there. But
Yeah. I think the cool thing about Jordan Battle is he gets bounced around so much on this defense.
And to his credit, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he has played 190 snaps in the box, but he's
Mhm.
also played 160 at free safety. And
Yeah.
part of the value of Jordan Battle is that as a guy
Is
you
that-
can move around and ask him,
He's a
hey,
chess piece.
cover this
Yeah.
tight end on this play. Now
Yeah.
go cover the deep half and be the post safety. Like, and
Yeah.
that's ways that you can rotate your defense to where your quarterback goes, okay, there's Jordan Battle. Okay, he's going to be the box safety. Watch him creeping up. And then suddenly Jordan Battle drops back into the free safety spot and the post safety spot, and you rotate the whole defense. That's ways that you change the picture.
Right.
That's ways that you fuck with the quarterback
Right.
after they snap the ball and they go, oh shit.
Mhm.
And they have to hold the ball an extra second because the picture changed. Like that's the versatility. Yes, is he probably a better box safety than a free safety? Yeah, the same way I'd say Mike Hilton's probably a better blitzer than he is a pass coverage or run
Yeah,
defender.
I agree.
But that doesn't mean you blitz him every single play, right?
Mhm.
Like the versatility is something that makes especially secondary pieces extremely valuable. And I think that's something
100%.
that you should just appreciate with Jordan Battle and not try to.
You-
And I think Dax Hill, until he got injured, was playing really, really well.
Dax Hill was our best coverage defensive back.
Try not to have too much recency bias
Mhm.
because I saw 2 good years of Cam Taylor Britt, and now I've seen a bad one.
Mhm.
So where is the truth? It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
If you asked me before the season, I might have said, hey, Cam Taylor Britt is probably their best defensive back going in with Von Bell, and you didn't know what Geno Stone would be. Like sitting here right now, I don't know. It's tough because they've had so many injuries.
Yeah, you
Like-
really don't know. I mean, even DJ Turner was playing.
DJ
pretty well
Turner for
before
those
he got
last
hurt.
like 3 or 4 weeks before he got
playing
hurt was
great.
playing like he was playing like their best DB. So like you must know something we don't because
Mhm.
like I'm sitting up here saying I like all these guys for different reasons, but I have no clue. Like
Yeah.
to speak in absolutes like that, man. Maybe it's Lou Anarumo's burner account. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a New Year's resolution. I said this year I'm going to listen more. I'm going to listen more to what people say. I will be less of a dickhead on this show. I will listen to the comments that people say. And you know what? What's that saying going on TikTok now? We listen and we don't judge. That's going to be my new thing. I'm not going to judge. I am going to listen to what people say, and I'm going to watch more film. That is what I'm going to do because that's what M tells me to do. And I appreciate you, M. If you guys can do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. I want to talk about the Bengals sneaking into the playoffs potentially. They need some things to happen. We talked about what those things are.
Mhm.
How do you guys see it playing out? There are a lot of people out there with a lot of takes. But I'm curious to see what my co-hosts think about the outcome of this week. Logan, you're over there scratching your
God.
beard. So I want to
Yeah.
hear what your thoughts are.
It's a lot, like I don't want to say I'm overly confident, but I like our odds to win against the Steelers. And that first and foremost, that is the only thing that they can control. So check that off. And then not that you can live with the other outcomes,
Mhm.
but knowing that you kind of did your part after sucking for so long, you
That's all you
kind
can
of bounce back.
After what?
after you struggled for so
Okay.
long.
what you were
You know,
saying
you
there.
kind of bounce back and get back on track.
Yeah,
Uh,
State of the Jungle's back.
Yeah.
yeah, State of the Jungle's back. It's been 2 weeks. Here we go.
But after you get back
Oh.
on track and you end the season on a win, you're relying, like we said, on Evan's favorite player, Aaron Rodgers,
Mhm.
and
Mm-hmm. He
My
kind of looks
guy.
like him, low-key.
and Super Bowl
He
champion.
low-key looks like
He's
him.
got a very, very thought-provoking, very insightful, well thought out, excellently
Yeah,
done.
go check out his new documentary on Netflix.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
my gosh.
super,
that and Chiefsaholic.
super
That and
enigmatic.
Chiefsaholic.
Super
I just
enigmatic.
realized
Ooh.
Chiefsaholic has a documentary on Amazon.
Those are the
Amazon,
people,
what are you doing?
He's more mysterious than Aaron
But what are you
Rodgers, let's be
doing? Why do you have a
honest. Like,
Chiefsaholic documentary? He's a dude that dressed up, went to games, and robbed banks. As simple
He
as
robbed
that.
banks to go to games.
That's
That's at least
great.
an
First of
interesting
all, that's
story.
dedication. Let him out.
Aaron Rodgers being
Free
like,
him. Free
I
him.
want to attack Jimmy Kimmel for being a pedophile, and
Oh my
also I started putting, what did he start putting in his water? A cayenne pepper in his water, and that didn't turn around my
It's-
season.
Isn't Hollywood Brown playing in this game too?
I would
he's
imagine
just
he's
back,
caught
right.
it.
I don't know because they played him as a first stringer last week, or
I'd
at least he
imagine
was
he gets a
getting
little
first stringer
run
reps.
here and there.
Maybe you get a quarter.
You got to play him because he hasn't played.
he
Really.
hasn't played all year.
Maybe you get a quarter. I don't know, man. But I'm not even worried about the second stringers for the quarterback of the weapons. I think Carson Wentz is not a 14-point dog to the Broncos type
Mhm.
guy, but it's the backup O line.
Yeah.
It's the backup D line.
Yeah.
And a backup O line in front of Carson Wentz. That's what scares me.
Right.
I feel confident that, hey, maybe with Snoop Huntley and the way that offense looks for the Dolphins, maybe with Aaron Rodgers chasing his, is it 500th career touchdown pass?
Hopefully.
With him and Devontae Adams
And
both
it's in New
chasing
York.
that.
And last time they
maybe,
faced him went to overtime.
maybe.
Dolphins played in the cold. I know it ain't Tua, but
Right. Yeah. They're like, I think Jay Morrison said they were like 1-8 or 1-9 or something in
Mhm.
games below 30 degrees. So, hey, maybe I feel good, like
You
you
can
said,
get-
about
yeah.
the Bengals game. I feel better than not about that. Cool. You put the money line in for the Jets and you're like, hey, sure. Yeah.
it's
you
possible.
feel right.
Got
And then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs and you're like, man, like if it was just starters with Carson Wentz,
I'd say
I'd say I feel a lot better about it. But man,
If you let the Bengals,
I don't think they want to let the Bengals.
I don't
in.
think so either.
That's-
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'm like, sit at home, Joe. Sit at home.
I think of
you know?
any team that the Chiefs have faced, they've gotten the better of everybody
Mhm.
except for the Bengals. Like they have legitimately gone, like right down the middle of throwing haymakers at each
Mhm.
other, and I don't think they want to take that chance.
I think we'll see very early how that game's gonna go. If it's first quarter and it's a close game, then it's gonna be a close game the rest of the time.
Guys, though, let me just say this: like, you don't, and this is just me objectively speaking. I don't care one way or the other what happens, honestly speaking, because I think that it is what it is. If you miss the playoffs, I personally would like to make the playoffs on your own accord, not someone else's.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
respectfully, would I like to see the Bengals in playoffs? Yes, but also I'm not going to be like, oh, please just give me the Bengals to play. That's not what I'm doing. But what I will say is, I don't think you just come back from the Broncos had plenty of opportunities to put this thing away
It's a tough loss.
and be in the playoffs. You don't just they control their own, right? They controlled it throughout. You don't just come back from losing 2 pivotal games. That doesn't just happen, right?
Yeah. It's tough.
You don't just come back from everyone's down on Bo Nix right now. Everyone's talking. First, they were talking about the guys. Oh, he's so good, pro right. He should be up there with rookie of the year. I don't think that happens. Listen, I've been around football my entire life. I've got a chance to see a lot of teams, professionally, college, high school. Momentum is real.
That it is.
Now you're going into a game with all the pressure on you. It's bigger than it probably needs to be. I don't know. Could we see an Ohio State, Michigan thing where you psych yourself out so much for this game? And then you're kind of in your own head, especially a team that's had your number since 2015?
Yeah.
Could it be that? I don't know. I just think that you don't just come back from this. And regardless, will the Chiefs be looking to play their starters? No. But I think there is such a thing as pressing too hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is such a thing as trying too hard, playing out of your realm, if you will.
Yeah.
Everything's right there for the Broncos to win. Just like everything was right there for the Colts to win. And then what happened? They went into MetLife against the New York Football Giants, who hadn't won a game at home, and they lost. Now the Broncos take on the Kansas City Chiefs, who they lost to earlier this season. And they're like, yes, this is our opportunity to beat the Chiefs. backups playing. But just like we say, tanking isn't real. Who's it? Like, this game means something to Carson Wentz.
Yes, it does. A lot of those people.
This game means something for some of these other players. Whatever happens, happens, right? But I just don't believe the notion that Bo Nix is going to go in there and just beat the brakes off the Chiefs. I don't believe that.
Yeah, the Broncos have like an awkward line to walk to where, yes, they control their own destiny. Yes, they're playing the Chiefs backups, but, how do we approach it? How, not that you're going to do anything different because you're playing the backups, but like, what are you going to expect? Are they going to call the game differently? How's Carson Wentz going to look? How's this player going to look? There's more unknown for the Chiefs than there is the Broncos. And like I said, when we were talking before the show, I think that if the Chiefs like sit here and coach the same, regardless, like Spags is still dialing up some creativity, and Andy Reid's still doing his thing too. Like, I think it should still be a game regardless, because I think they are great coaches, and I think the Broncos offense isn't anything to write home about. But the talent gap obviously will be there, backups versus starters. But at the end of the day, the Broncos, like Malik said, they have a lot. They have everything to play for. Literally everything. Every decision, every snap is going to be a stressful one. Like Evan talked about the Bengals, it's a high leverage situation every single snap for the Broncos. For the Chiefs, they're just not that they're just out there playing, just doing whatever, but there is no stress for the people out there on the field. And when you can go out there and play freely and play relaxed versus a team that's going to be so tense and so upright, momentum is going to be a real thing in that game.
And can I be honest with you, even go a step further? When we talk about the Chiefs backups, what are we actually saying? Carson Wentz, right? He's capable. He is capable, especially with the Chiefs play calling him. There's a reason why
He went there.
even you look at the Chiefs back record with their backups in there, it's pretty good, right? But you look at it though, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the second stringers. That's what Andrew Reid said, playing the second stringers, right? So you're not playing Isaiah Pacheco, but you're playing Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine and guys like Carson Steele. You're not playing Xavier Worthy, but you're playing guys who have been touchdown machines for the Chiefs in the past, and guys like Justin Watson. You're playing Juju Smith-Schuster. Like what are we talking about here, right?
Noah Gray, who's been great. Like
we're talking about guys that have had playing time. You're not playing, DJ Humphries, but you're playing Wanya Morris maybe at left tackle.
Yeah.
You're playing guys like a Charles Omenihu. You're playing guys like Josh Uche. You're still playing guys. That's my thought process. I don't think it's just one of those things where it's, hey, we're going to go in there and roll over. I'll tell you right now, I'm taking Chiefs money line. I'm taking Chiefs money line. I think Chiefs win this game. And I've been on record saying that. I think Chiefs win this game. I do. I feel like, and this says more about the Broncos than it actually does the Chiefs. I feel like maybe a year from now, maybe the Broncos are in a different spot. But I do think there's a thing where you can psych yourself out for the game. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I will put egg on my face come Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with being wrong. I'm okay with being wrong in this situation. But I've been around football too much. And you know what's crazy? Adam Graves says, I think y'all are delusional as F. Broncos finna kill the Chiefs. Okay. Just like everyone told me I was delusional when I said the Giants were going to beat the Colts. So here we are. We'll see what happens. Hey, we'll see what happens.
I'll be played.
One thing's for sure. I'll be watching.
Yeah.
I'll be watching. I'll be perked up watching that game, seeing, whatever happens, right? And I'll be live Sunday night. I'll be live Sunday night to talk it all through, to have the conversation. Whether the Bengals get in or Bengals don't. But Chiefs, whatever that says. Best of luck to you guys. Whoever wins, wins. Or Broncos, let's ride, or whatever they say. I don't know what they say.
Broncos country, let's ride.
Broncos country, let's ride. Let's talk about coaching changes, guys. It's been a topic of conversations. The waters have definitely cooled the last couple of weeks. The conversation here for me is, do you guys think the Bengals make any coaching changes potentially, no matter the outcome? You got to think that Luan Rimo built himself up some favor with the team, with the organization after the last couple performances, 7 turnovers, all that good stuff. Do you guys think the Bengals make some changes on the coaching staff from whether it be coordinator level or position coaches? What do you say, Logan? And what would you do too?
It's getting more and more tough to answer this by the week. On the show, we've been very pro Luan Rimo to a degree throughout the season. But but it's hard for me not to see a change in some regard. Maybe that's not necessarily Lou. Maybe it's it's gonna have to be some positional coaches or something. But I just think it's how I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I would almost guarantee there's never been a team that has the defensive ratings, the terribleness that the defense has been all year long, and there wasn't a single change made. I can't pinpoint exactly where it'll be, because maybe it's a D-line coach, but we like Marion Howard, linebackers coach, secondary coach, whatever the hell it is. I feel like there's just got to be something.
Yeah.
There just has to be. Maybe not might not even be deserving of that person, but I just think it's very hard to sell the fan base, to even sell some of the players that we laid an egg for majority of the season.
And me finally agree on something.
Go.
He said I was on payroll. Well, you let this man know. Emily, the Bengals hate me. They hate when I talk shit. When I got stuff to say. When I start chirping on this mic, they hate that shit. But no, he said it's the personnel. Lou's the best coach on our staff. That's actually a hot take that I have. It's either him or pitcher. I personally think Lou is the best coach on the Bengals coaching staff. In my honest opinion.
I would agree. I think Frank Pollock is fine. I think Marion Hobby.
Frank Pollock? Did they say Frank?
I think Marion Hobby is fine. Troy Walters is
a damn good coach.
But yeah, top three, damn pitcher. Troy Walters, Lou Anarumo. Yeah, I can get behind that 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
When it comes to coaching staff changes, I said this was going to happen before the Cowboys game, right? I said, however you feel in this moment, whether that's keep everyone, whether that's fire everyone, don't let this next stretch of games with 3 lackluster teams color your expectations and completely change the 14 game sample you have before those games, right? And here we are, right? Where everybody's suddenly opinions have changed. Things have shifted, right? And now look how hard these guys are playing. I got a couple thoughts on that, right?
Oh, Cook. I can't wait. I'm going to sit back and just watch this one now.
So when we talk about your season's lost, right? And we talk about tanking, and you say, well, the player's never going to tank, which is true because we talk about how players are playing for their next job, right? They're playing for their next contract. They're auditioning to be on this team, next team, whatever else, right? Playing for pride, right? However, whatever reason, right? But then I see a lot of people saying, oh, the last 2-3 weeks, these players just haven't quit. They haven't given up. That means that Zach Taylor really has these guys bought in and playing their asses off. You just told me the entire last 4 or 5 weeks that, they play for pride and they play for paychecks and they play for their audition. But 3 weeks later, we're like, oh, no, it's the coach is doing such a great job. It's like, you just told me they play hard all the time, regardless of whatever. So like, which one is it? Is my question in that sense, right? And I don't think it's fair that Troy Walters or Dan Pitcher should lose their job if all the coaching staff gets cleared out, right? Because I think there are people on this staff that are very good at their job, that are capable at their job. But again, it goes back to no coach quarterback combo has won a Super Bowl if they haven't done it together in their first 5 years. Yes, absolutely. You can buck trends. Does anything about how the Bengals operate in free agency, the draft, team building, lead you to believe that they're going to put together such a team that they're going to be the one team to buck that trend? No. Is there anything about the pairing of Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow besides Joe Burrow? Is there anything Zach Taylor brings to the table that you go, that is special and that will make him buck the trend over all these other Hall of Fame coaches that couldn't do it? No. Does beating the Cowboys because they muffed a punt and gave the ball back to you at the end of the game after your play to win the game in the end zone was a third and long fade or fourth down fade to T. Higgins? That was the best she had as the offensive play caller. No. Does winning by the muffed punt, does winning by 10 points against a game where the Titans had 4, 5, 6 turnovers, does winning by 10 points against one of the worst teams in the NFL, one of the worst offenses in the NFL with 4 turnovers, 5 turnovers, does that change that you start every year slow for the last 5 years? Does that change that you look unprepared constantly for games that you should win easily.
Yep.
Does that change fourth down issues where you're throwing behind the sticks, where you go out there in heavy personnel instead of spreading things out and making things easier on you? Questionable red zone and fourth down decision making. Does getting lucky against the Cowboys change any of that for you? Right. So again, I'm like, yes, as a Bengals fan, objectively, I'm happy to see the team win. I'm happy to see these players doing well. I want Jamar Chase to get the Triple Crown. I want Joe Burrow to keep kicking ass and breaking records and win MVPs. I want them to succeed. But I can also separate the team won from how did you get there?
Yep.
And I can also say that 2 weeks of beating the Titans and the Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb having one arm hanging out of his shoulder socket, like, that doesn't move the needle for me for why didn't you beat any of the 7 other teams that had a winning record that you played this season? Why didn't you beat any of these other crap teams that are competing for top 5 picks? Why was everything such a struggle? And again, I look at the 5-year body of work. I look at the entire season body of work and I go, is there anything about the last 2 weeks? And we have to evaluate this like quarterbacks in bad situations. We can't just say team success, so good, right? Because that's how people said Blake Bortles was good. They said QB wins. He's one of the winningest quarterbacks in the last 2 years. Say what you will. He finds a way to win the game. No, it was his defense carrying him. It was his running backs carrying him. It was everybody else, right? You're winning in spite of him. With the bad management the other day on the clock. Now, I'm not going to tear him about after Chase Brown had the injury timeout, right? But there are multiple fourth downs in that game, multiple short yardage, multiple clock issues where it's like, hey, probably should have done that different. And again, we're 5 years in now with Joe Burrow, and we're still doing this. We're still having the same problems week in, week out, season in, season out. It's not changing. It's not getting better. The offense has a higher output because you have Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow playing like the best players at their position.
Remember situational coaching too. The Bengals could have put up a whole lot more points, but kept going to Cade York.
And now there's play action, and now there's motion more than ever been. And again, what changed? Because Zach Taylor either just figured that out in year 5, or it's Dan Pitcher, and it's the outside consultants that they brought in.
So let's talk about that for a second. And you're cooking with hot grease right now, and I feel like I don't want to slow you down, but you brought up the slow starts, right? You brought up the losses to teams that are competing for top 5 picks. Let me ask you a question, Ev. Who is to blame, in your opinion, for that? You've tiptoed around it. I think you're getting there with it. But who is to blame? And let me ask you a question, because you said what turned around? What turned around? What has led the Bengals?
It's Joe Burrow throwing fucking touchdown passes on his knees. It's Joe Burrow scrambling for his fucking life multiple times and doing jump passes in the end zone. It's lack of creativity constantly on high leverage downs or high leverage situations. There's no problem in going for it in the situations where you're supposed to, or it's close, or it's a toss up. When it's toss up and it's not a big win probability swing either way, whatever you feel comfortable with as a coach, right? Read the situation. But when there are giant swings to be had, it seems like he often does the opposite. And we talked about, I can't remember which game it was. Maybe it was the Ravens game where he just seemingly went for every single fourth down, even the ones that it recommended you punt for. So then it's like, it almost felt like you were just spamming buttons because you didn't know what to do, when to do it, right? You didn't know and so like, again, it comes back to, man, if we're 5 years into this and you're still just spamming the buttons, like, okay, bring someone on the staff. If you have the humility to understand that, there's no problem with having drawbacks as a coach, having flaws as a player, a coach. It's about how you compensate for those, right? And as the head coach, you have the organizational say-so to where you can get somebody for $30,000, $40,000 who's some sort of sports analytics guy who you work together in the offseason with your head coach to just talk through scenarios. And then you say, hey, I have so much on my plate because I'm the head coach and the offensive coordinator. I just need you to buzz in with 3 seconds of, hey, our system we agreed upon in the offseason says this. Zach Taylor can make changes based on, oh, we lost this offensive guard, or, oh, we think we have this advantage. That's fine. But you shouldn't just not have a plan. You shouldn't just not know. You shouldn't have to, in that moment, just go, oh,
you know what this tells me, though, respectfully?
Yeah.
And this might sound like a hot take, and I might even sound like a little bit of a dickhead when I say this. The best offensive, staff member on the Bengals has been sitting behind Brian Callahan and Zach Taylor for the last couple of years. For me, I was not impressed with Brian Callahan's offense. What got Brian Callahan a job was the job that they did with Jake Browning down the stretch, right? Where they were able to adapt and change the offense up. Like
Dan Pitcher had a giant hand in that offense because they literally
It was completely different.
I know for a fact that Dan Pitcher was not involved in the play calling and the headset much, if at all, prior to the Jacksonville game. Because you remember how ugly that offense looked when they just tried to run the Joe Burrow offense against the Steelers with Browning, right? It was horrible. And then the Jacksonville game came out and they had rollouts and they had half field reads and they had levels concepts and they were just making things so easy for them. And it was like, again, what changed? Did Zach Taylor scrap the whole offense? No, they grabbed Dan Pitcher and said, hey, you work with this guy. You're the quarterback's coach. What can we do? And he helped call and design what Jake Browning was running. And then Dan Pitcher ascends and takes in more of a role. And now we see more of the stuff we saw with Jake Browning, where we see more play action, we see more motion. And so it's like, we're assigning credit where we're doing the Blake Bortles thing where we're like, oh, they've won this game and that game, so things must be perfect, right? And I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
And Times is saying something in the comment section I want us to get to.
Yeah.
I want y'all to know, when we launched this show, we wanted to vocalize the big picture. That was the whole purpose of the show. We didn't want to look at this thing as a glass half full type deal. We really wanted to approach this thing as a whole. And Time says, nah, bro, y'all can't be saying this about the offense. This is the most points by the Bengals ever scored in a season in Bengals history.
Can I ask Times something here? Times. When you're looking at these touchdowns, the T. Higgins one was a great example. There was a T. Higgins one where he motioned, ISO, motion, T. Higgins, one-on-one, easy touchdown. That is a play based on great design. That's what you need, especially if you're an offensive head coach.
Yeah.
And that's why you're here, right? You design the offense and you're calling the plays. You're supposed to have those built in, right? More than one, ideally, would be great. How many of these touchdowns, how many of these third down conversions do you see Joe Burrow scrambling from the pocket, Joe Burrow maneuvering the pocket, Joe Burrow in the Steelers game throwing a jump pass, Joe Burrow throwing from just half an inch off the ground on his knees to touchdowns? Those are not offensive design. So I say to you, yes, the Bengals are scoring points because T. Higgins is out there balling and Jamar Chase is out there balling and Mike Gesicki is doing his thing and Chase Brown is going for hundreds of yards, total yards, right? And you've got the best offensive line, mostly because you've got like three pieces that are playing well right now. Joe Burrow playing at an MVP caliber level and Jamar Chase playing as the best wide receiver and T. Higgins also playing like a wide receiver one when he's on the field. Those are the reasons that the offense is finding ways to score, because it is not, wow. Some of these other games, man, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, these are the Jamar Chases. The guys, when you look at Jamar Chase and he's got a corner right up on him and he's got a safety turned to his side, ready there, basically bracketing him. But yet you still find times where Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown are running 10 yards wide open with no one around them, right? Yeah. It's because you have those instances where you do something scheme-wise, whether that's tricky motions, whether that's bunch formations and odd switch releases, stressing communications, attacking defensive communications. That's how you create mismatches for your players. And too often, this offense is scoring points and succeeding based on players excelling outside of the scheme, which, yes, is their job, but it would be wrong for us to look at passes from Joe Burrow on his knees, from jump passes he's throwing in the back of the end zone, from his crazy scrambles, from his 40-yard scrambles in the Giants game, for all the tackles that Jamar Chase forces and misses. It would be a mistake for us to all look at that and go, man, Zach Taylor's doing such a great job designing this play. You know, and I get that the offensive line protection has to hold up for the play to develop fully automatically, but there's too many instances where it is the players excelling outside of the very basic scheme than it is. And there are certainly cool plays where every once in a while I'll go, hey, there's a good design. That's awesome, but it is way too far and few between. And you have 4 plays of Joe Burrow hero ball for every 1 play that you've got designed well. And that just can't be the only thing you bring to the table.
Right. So I think the overall look on Zach could change if Zach were willing to step aside and it'll just allow Dan Pitcher to run the offense, like, right, and become like more of the operations guy of the team, you know, because I definitely think that there's a little bit, and I've kind of been on record the last couple of seasons saying this. I think there's a little bit too much. He's a little too close to the situation, and I feel like it kind of hurts him overall from the decision making when it comes to situational coaching, which is something that has been something we talked about at an alarming rate. I think Zach Taylor's not in his role because of these X's and O's. Zach Taylor's in his role because
Culture.
because culture, and he understands, right? He's a great spokesman for the team. Respectfully, he is. You know, he's going to say the right things. You know, he's not going to put his foot in his mouth. You know,
Excellent in press
he's going to
conferences.
be excellent at press conferences.
Yeah.
And I think he is a player's coach. He does have a good relationship with talking with
Good
his
at
players.
managing players. Yeah.
But I think all that stuff works when things are going great. I think when things are bad, I don't know if the same, we all share the same sentiment. I don't think Zach Taylor is a bad head coach, right? But I think that our outlook on Zach as a head coach is directly impacted on how the offense performs, not just from scoring a bunch of points, but what happens in crunch time, what happens in situational coaching. Like there are times where Zach is really, really aggressive. And he goes out there and he says, you know what? I'm going to trust my guy, right? We're going to go out there. We're going to put the ball in his hands. We're going to go with them.
And then there's games like the Eagles game where you have a punt off until you tie.
Yeah.
And then you have the Patriots game where it's like, hey, we can't make a tackle and they're running for 6 yards a carry.
Yeah.
We're going to punt the ball back instead of saying Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, go win us 5 yards. Like, yeah, that's when I'm like, dude, what are we doing? Why are we giving the ball back to the other team? Why are you not believing in yourself? Because again, you're the offensive play caller. You're supposed to be designing this. You've put all these resources into the offense. So you could have in that moment an unstoppable force. And too often you shrink.
I think if you're looking at it from the X and O's perspective, I think that let's play a hypothetical game. I think a guy like Dan Pitcher, I think Dan Pitcher is going to be a fine head coach one day. He's a guy that knows the Bengals culture. He's been around for so long. So I think that even if you looked at his limited press conferences that he has done, he always is about the right stuff. He says the correct things. I think that my issue when I do talk about Zach Taylor, when Evan talks about Zach Taylor, when Logan talks about Zach Taylor, it's not that we think the guy is terrible. We just think that there are some questionable situation and coaching moments that kind of speak to him sometimes being in over his head, respectfully. Part of being the head coach is not just about how the offense performs, about the game in totality. It's about understanding the temperature of the game. I could point to several games where I felt like the defense kept the offense in this. And I feel like, respectfully, that was a lot of it, even during the Super Bowl run, too, respectfully. I felt like that was the case. They've never had, like outside of Trey Hendrickson, you never had somebody you could, and Jesse Bates, obviously, when he was here, you never had anybody where you're like, damn, that's the star of this defense. Like understand something. The strength of the offense should be, the strength of this team should be the offense.
100%.
You talk about what the Bengals have allocated resource-wise to this team. Of course, the offense should be, like he would be fired, right? If the offense wasn't as explosive as it is. So I don't know why we're acting like that's shocking, or not us on the panel, but it's just a whole, why we're like, wow, the offense performs so good, but the defense is so poor. Well, the Bengals, they're ranked, like I want to say third to last in league in spending defensively. Yeah. Like when we look at this thing as a whole, you look at the stars. Let's talk about stars, right? If for those of young fans that are out there that play Madden, do me a favor. Go to Madden and you look at on the Bengals team who has a superstar badge, who has an X Factor badge. I'm dumbing it down really, really specific right now. Very specific. You go to the Bengals offense and you tell me on Madden, for those of Madden players who don't understand, who are trying to understand the nuances of the game, you tell me who has a superstar badge, X Factor badge, star badge, and then you go to me a favor. You go to the Bengals defense, and then you tell me who has superstar badge, X Factor badge. That's for the Madden players. For us people that watch film that understands the game, you've invested so much money in who? Well, in Jamar You know, Jamar Chase obviously was a top pick, 5th overall. T. Higgins, very, very good pick. Should have been a first-round pick. Joe Burrow, 1st overall pick. Superstar quarterback. I believe best quarterback in the National Football League. Those guys should be playing the way that they have. That is where your resources have gone. You've left no stone unturned trying to correct the offensive line, except for the interior, which is kind of weird. If you're going to go all in on the offense, don't you think you should probably change your thought process, your pattern, right? If you're going to go all in on the offense, let's say, you know what? We're building an impenetrable force. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go out there. We're going to get 2 elite guards. We're going to make sure our quarterback isn't touched. But it's a weird philosophy. It's, hey, we believe in our skill position players. We build with our tackles. We draft a very, very good tackle in Amarius Mims. But the guard position, we'll let it rock. Whoa. That's very, very weird. So for me, I think that's something that needs to change philosophy-wise for the Bengals and the offseason. But when you look at the defense, move on over to the defense. You have Trey Hendrickson. Right? And then we're like, why is the Bengals defense so poor? The help that you didn't have with Dax Hill tears his ACL. He's gone. Right? Cam Sample tears his Achilles. He's gone. Okay.
DJ Turner.
He's gone.
Logan Wilson.
He's gone. So what are we doing to help said defense? So for me, it's not really that rocket science. It's you add money to the defense and the defense plays better. It's really just that simple. You can't have good players that contributed in a positive way to the defense leave, and then you say, hey, we'll just work with the guys that we call up from the practice squad, or we'll work with guys who have fluttered on the team as deep depth pieces. To me, it doesn't make a lot. To me, that's why guys, I'm all for calling for someone's job if they deserve it.
And I think this is a good point, because I've said a lot to that would be condemning of Zach Taylor, right? And particularly when you talked about being built to be the offensive juggernaut, I think the biggest sign of never taking that step forward is, since you got Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow as Zach Taylor, you are bottom 3 in going for it on 4th down when you should, since you've had those 2. And if you go and you alter that win probability to below 30%, hey, game's on the line, you got to go, it becomes dead last.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest indictments I see there. Now, that's from the coaching, what he can control. To your point, and to Zach's defense, I do want to say that he's been working with what he's been given, right? To where the team building, the team design, they had the excellent offseason where they nailed the free agent DJ Reader, Cheeto Woozy, Mike Hilton, Von Bell, and every single one hit, right? But that's the scenario where you toss the coin 5 times and you get all heads. Not likely to happen again. And we've seen that the last couple of years, right? And the coffers have gotten a little bit more bare every year, right? As they've tried to rework this offensive line. So he, just like quarterbacks should not get QB wins as their sole evaluation method, we should not do that with head coaches too. But for all the reasons that I mentioned before, that's why I look at Zach. I can do that and acknowledge that there is still some changes the front office could make. But again, it comes back to the question of, well, if the front office isn't going to make those changes, is Zach Taylor the one to win with this team while having that proverbial hand tied behind his back, right? And is he the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel level offensive schemer that would make you think that, like, hey, maybe he's just had some bad luck, some bad go of it the first 5 years? I think the answer is pretty clearly no. And again, I don't like to come up here and call for anybody's job. I don't want Troy Walters or Dan Pitcher or Lou Anarumo or any of these guys to lose their job. But again, it goes back to the biggest, easiest change you can make on this team, because it's going to be the front office is an institution, right? There is foundational work over years that has to change for them to change their approach and their philosophy. That is hard to do. It is much easier to let a coaching staff go and fill it with new ideas about how to best utilize the players you have.
Now, I want to touch on something real quick. So I've been seeing this argument come up a lot of it. And I hope you guys know I love y'all. I love having this debate with you. Someone said, we draft the defense with premium picks, though, Malik. Yes, superstars on offense, but they weren't drafted in the last 3 years. Defensive players were. You need to be able to develop someone. So imagine, let's play a game for a second. Imagine the Bengals went out and they let T. Higgins walk. And then they relied on Jermaine Burton, Andre Yoshivas, and Charlie Jones to replace the number 2 wide receiver snaps. Let's play a little game. What does that look like then? Do we still feel this offense is as explosive with that?
Nope.
Let's imagine they didn't sign a Mike Gesicki, right? And they relied on it. Eric All. Unfortunately, we know how his season turned out with a torn ACL. And you had Tanner McLaughlin. You were asking essentially, you're asking to replace guys that played critical downs, critical snaps for this team with rookies. How does that make sense anywhere? That's my thought process.
I don't think you had a great plan for Dax Hill either, because
and I'm gonna let you cook there.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's it. I think
but
that's the whole of it.
I think that, and I've talked about this before, guys. I think a lot of the Bengals moves have been reactionary. The drafting has been reactionary. You asked Dax Hill, you drafted Dax Hill with no interest in re-signing Jesse Bates. Understand something, guys. The Bengals front office already mentally made up in their mind they would not be re-signing Jesse Bates. Right?
Yep.
They already made up in their mind that they would not be re-signing Jesse Bates. How can you say that, Malik? Well, they went out and they drafted Dax Hill, right, to work under Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates wasn't trying to mentor his replacement. That's not how the league works. That was the thought process when drafting those guys. Miles Murphy was reactionary. He was the next guy on the board. They're like, well, we got to give him something. We gave him something. We added to the defensive line with no real plan. And he was a guy that everybody said was a project. Looked very good his first year at Clemson. The entire defensive line took a step back at Clemson once they lost Venables. Mm-hmm. It was always going to be a project. Breesy took a step back. Like, everybody took a step back. I also don't love the idea of drafting defensive. That's just me drafting guys out of it from the ACC. That's just my preference personally. But a lot of it was reactionary. Listen, it's fine. Hear me out. And I want everybody to get into this mentality. It's fine if you draft talent. But again, free agency is for the now. Drafting is for the future. It's for the future. So essentially, the guys that you sign in free agency should be playing those critical snaps. They are the vets. They are the guys that you are relying on to help bring those guys along. But what happens when you draft those guys and then those said guys don't learn right away? What happens when those guys do face injuries like a Miles Murphy, and then they take a step back and they come back and they're a little bit shaky on that knee? You have nobody to replace those snaps. So what happens? He gets thrusted into the spot and he looks like shit, respectfully. So you're forced to drag out a Sam Hubbard out there still because your young defensive end who showed a bit of promise last season, right? What's going on? He's coming back from an injury. He doesn't have the most confidence in himself. It's not all that shocking to see what has transpired. But Sam Hubbard has fallen off a cliff. Sam Hubbard's been what he is for the last 2 seasons now. Yeah.
And now he's playing injured.
That's on the front office to look at it and say, hey, you know what? Let's move off of that. Joseph Ossai has shown more promise this year, but you got to remember the last couple of seasons, before we say there has been no development there, Joseph Ossai has dealt with injuries. He's been in and out of the lineup. And when you even put him out there, it was clear he was still not playing up to his best, whether it be the injury element or whatever the case may be. We knew the guy had some type of potential, but even on the edge this year, it doesn't show the most flash. He shows some promise, but he also shows a lot of promise from the interior. So if we're going to say there's been no progress, I look at guys like Chris Jenkins, who have been healthy, even though he did deal with injury earlier on. McKinley Jackson, who started the season injured. You're seeing progress, right? You're seeing progress with them. And 92 Slurp says, yeah, Sam has also been playing hurt the last 2 years. LOL. You're right. But also, it's the NFL. If a guy's not healthy, unfortunately, that's life in the National Football League.
If you're playing in a detrimental league, just like they did with the Marius Mims, when they said, hey, you went out there, you tried to play, you're still hurt, you're still not doing well. We got to take you out of the game to protect you and to be honest with ourselves that, hey, you at 50% or 40% is not what the backup can give us. Same thing with Sam.
Well,
and maybe Cam Sample changed that.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, dude, Sam is out here literally like should have had surgery. Like literally. It's detached from bone here. And it's like, even he's out here like, yeah, I should have had surgery. And it's like, okay, if we got an already unathletic guy who's now hobbled because he has to have surgery, but instead of have surgery, he's lacing him up. Like, what are we doing? Because you're putting Sam at risk. You're putting the rest of the team in an unfair position. Like that's unfair to everybody involved.
And so my thought process is versus being the guy that gets on a mic and says blah 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 XYZ. I'll tell you what I thought. What I think. I think that when Chido Uzie walked out the door, you should have replaced those snaps with a veteran cornerback, which is what Evan said, which is what I said, which is what Joe Goodberry said. Like these are things that not only I have said, other people have said. When that guy walked out the door, you should have done more. You replace the nose tackle with a guy that has never been a nose tackle. Obviously, the signing hasn't panned out the way it is because of a sickness. But Sheldon Rankins was never going to replace DJ Reader.
Never.
He was never going to. He was never. You can go back and watch State of the Jungles long before when they signed him. What did I say, Logan? I said, I don't love the signing.
Yep.
I don't love the signing. That's not an aha gosh moment. That's just me being honest. That is not that is a organizational mishap right there. That's them saying, who's the next best guy on the board? Hey, let's grab Sheldon Rankins. They brought in the young kid who has a little bit of an attitude, who Miami wind up signing. What's the guy's name? The defensive tackle they brought in.
Tyre Tart.
Tyre Tart, who was the closest thing from a play style to a DJ Reader, but he was never going to even be the guy to also replace a DJ Reader. But that's my thought process. Instead of trying to replace DJ Reader, why don't you just try to bring DJ Reader back and actually make a valiant effort to bring, because with the Lions signed him for, the Bengals certainly could have afforded. But again, there are decisions that get made predetermined, and then it is what it is. Now, that's how you end up in this situation where now you have to go all, no matter who the defensive coordinator is next year. Do you guys think a very good defensive coordinator is going to come to Cincinnati without asking the Bengals, getting it guaranteed that they're going to make significant changes on the defensive side of the ball? Do you actually think you're going to get a Robert Saleh, who, by the way, people were calling for his job before they even got a Bosa and all that kind of stuff like that, because he wasn't that good of a defensive coordinator. Scheme-wise, schematic-wise, was not that good of a defensive coordinator. Do you guys think you're going to get a star defensive coordinator in here without getting guarantees from the organization that, by the way, they're not going to make? Do you think they're going to get a star defensive coordinator in here that's going to say, yep, I'll accept this roster as is? Because every coordinator, especially if you're trying to get a star defensive coordinator, what do you think their end goal is going to be? To be a what, guys? A head coach. You not doing right by them is counterproductive. It's counterproductive. So if you're not going to guarantee them in writing in their contract that we'll sign X amount of dollars to said free agency, we'll overhaul the defensive line, we'll also change schematically and get the players you want in here, right? Ultimately, whoever you sign as a star defensive coordinator like everybody's expecting, they'll want to come in here and they'll want change. They'll want you to help towards their ultimate goal of being a said head coach. You giving them an injured Sam Hubbard, one Trey Hendrickson, who's the best pass rusher and only consistent pass rusher on the team, is not helping them towards their ultimate goal. See, I'm a big picture thinker. I'm a big picture guy when it comes to it. It's not that rocket science because you know what I think, guys, respectfully? I think Lou could be an elite defensive coordinator if the Bengals actually allocated resources towards the defense.
Yeah.
I think Lou's going to be a good defensive coordinator if you give him average talent that you allocate towards the defense. That's what I believe. I believe if you fired Lou Anarumo, that would be a mistake. That's what I believe. I believe that would be a mistake. I understand the league just as best as anyone. I understand the optics. You are what you are. What you are. You are what the numbers say you are. But make no mistake about it. Regardless of who the defensive coordinator is next year, I think it should be Lou. But whoever the defensive coordinator is next year, you're going to have to allocate resources to help them in their ultimate goal. You're going to. It's going to be a change of philosophy, which is fine. It happens around the league. But understand, there's going to be some type of change. Now, the question the Bengals have to ask themselves, is said defensive coordinator going to be better than Lou? Schematic-wise. Right? Schematic-wise. If you're saying we could find a defensive coordinator out there that's better than Lou, schematic-wise, I'm all for it. But if you're saying we could find a defensive coordinator just to change names out there, right? Just to change a name, but we're going to give them the same talent, it would not shock me if you end up in the same spot.
Yeah.
That's my thought process.
I agree.
If the Bengals' thought process is we'll swap defensive coordinators out, and that's what everybody's saying, fire Lou, and you'll bring in a new defensive coordinator, and you're going to give them that defense coordinator the same amount of talent, don't be shocked if you have the same exact results. That's all I'm saying. But I also will encourage you guys, guess what? Change is needed on the defensive side of the ball. Change is needed. You need better players out there. You do. You're going to need it. If you want this Bengals defense to look drastically different, it's going to start with the Bengals opening up the wallets. And I think the results will be a lot better. Respectfully. Does Lou have his flaws? Sure. Does Zach have his flaws? Sure. What coach doesn't? What coach out there is perfect? Should Lou have played his younger players sooner? 100% probably. 100%. But do I think in my heart he's doing the best with what he's got? I really believe that, guys. I really believe that. And guess what? I think that there's a lot of people out there to Jacqueline Hyde. He said, it's telling the media isn't calling for Lou's job. They seem to be on the Zach Taylor train too. I think a lot of people realize Lou is a good defensive coordinator. Yeah. And guess what? If that guy got fired, he would be a defensive coordinator within a week.
Well, your whole D-line got decimated. Your secondary is just injured as hell. The one linebacker you felt like could captain your defense is also out and hadn't been playing his best. And Jermaine Pratt was Michael Johnson, but the linebacker, right? Like one week he looks like one of the best players at his position out there and is flying around and filling the right gap and making tackles. And then other weeks he looks slow and upright and out of shape or out of position and taking bad angles. And it's like, it's
impossible.
I always hate to, I'm much more player centric in my opinions, right? I don't love the coaches who bang the table and just say, if all 11 of my guys could just execute perfectly every time for 60 some odd plays every game, it all works out so great. They've got weaknesses, right? It's your job as the coach to kind of move things around and make adjustments to accentuate the strengths, hide the weaknesses as best you can. I think when you just look at those things objectively, I think Lou has tried to do things in the sense of you've seen him throw things at the wall. You've seen him try rushing 3, try rushing 4, try rushing 5, try sending everybody, try sending nobody. Like, and the execution does fall back on the coach sometimes. But then there's just bad angles. Like Lou can't take the angles for them, right? And, you know, you could say this for Zach too. Like you can't catch the passes for him. It's just unfortunate that, you know, Lou doesn't have 3 guys that are all top 10 at their position for defense, right? He's got 1, and that's all he gets. Yeah. And it's like, man, if you had 3 people that were top 10 at their position, let's say you had Jesse Bates, you had DJ Reader, you had Trey Hendrickson, and I don't know that maybe DJ Reader's best year was, you know, top 10 D tackle type.
Mhm.
barely in there. But yeah, even if you want to say Cam Taylor-Britt's best year was, a 9-10 corner spot, I think the defense looks entirely different.
Mhm.
I think it does. I think missed tackles were such an issue for this team. People being injured, playing slow, it just kills you, man. And I think that's one thing the front office has to look at and has to change is, and maybe they did this with the offensive line with Amarius Mims and going kind of toward Matt Lee, who's undersized and more of an athlete. I think they need to do the same thing on the defense and try and put more of a focus on getting above average athletes, especially at the linebacker position, because you're just asked to do
So much.
way too much at the linebacker spot, that having that speed back there can really, really help you. Which also
agree.
on that note, shout out Fred Warner. How the fuck are you playing
He's
on a broken
unbelievable.
ankle? How are you playing on a broken
That's
ankle?
crazy.
Playing very well. Too.
Yeah, still playing well. Go ahead, man. Sorry.
But no, you're good. But for the Bengals, I think they just said it pretty well. We complain all the time about how bad the offensive line is, how bad this is on offense or play calling is, but we have the people to mask the issues. At the end of the day, the talent on the defense doesn't have the talent to mask the issues, and instead you notice them even more because now we're looking a little slower, we're looking a little bit out of place, we're this and that because there's only one person to kind of rely on week in and week out. Yes, when we get a good Geno Stone game, we appreciate it. Cam Taylor-Britt game, we appreciate it. But week in and week out, it's so much harder, and it's an impossible task for any defensive coordinator to handle. Is when you just have one guy that goes out there week in and week out that you can count on to try to build your defense around. It's almost impossible.
There's this weird notion out there too, and I want to get to this really quickly, guys. And I feel like this is one of our longer shows. In Times is cooking right now. He's like a fourth co-host today. He's like, identity of the defense was Lewis cooking exotic look schemes, but players on defense has been on a decline, getting slower and old. Yes, that is fair fact. But there's a notion out there that I've seen several weeks and we've never addressed it. People say, well, if Lou is such a good defensive coordinator, why did it take him so long to put Dax Hill at corner? So I love that take, by the way. Appreciate it. The Bengals were really deep at the cornerback spot, or to a degree. They had Cheetah Awuzie in the fold. And if you remember, actually, they did put Dax Hill at cornerback. They tried Dax Hill at cornerback quite a bit his rookie year. And then when he struggled a little bit, they moved him to covering tight ends. Then they stopped because he struggled a little bit. But he would still find himself in there every now and again. They would flutter him in. The goal was always for Dax Hill to play free safety.
That's what they wanted.
That's what the Bengals said. He's Jesse Bates.
Front office.
That was
vision.
the front office's vision.
Yeah.
He is the Jesse Bates' replacement. Jesse Bates leaves. By the way, Dax Hill was never a free safety at Michigan. That wasn't his designated role. He was a Swiss Army knife. He was used all over the field. That's what he was utilized for. So the vision there between Duke and his staff was interesting. Jesse Bates leaves, right? Jesse Bates leaves. Dax Hill is in there. And the Daily Blog, I'm going to get to your two. He says, or too long to finally put battle in. I'm going to get somewhere with you real quick. Jesse Bates leaves. Von Bell leaves. So now you have your young safety and Jordan Battle, who you drafted. You have Dax Hill, who's what? A second-year player. He's now the Jesse Bates' replacement. Right? So now he's got Dax Hill out there. He's got Jordan Battle out there. Communication, putrid. Young player stuff, things you expect. He was never going to get the snaps at free safety because you had an elite safety back there like Jesse Bates. So he was put into that role. Your job, learn the defense. You're going to be the communications guys. You're going to be the guy wearing the headset. Right? We understand how last year played out. Communication was porous, things like that. And it wasn't just a Dax Hill thing. It was both safeties. Both safeties essentially were rookies at their spots. Things looked bad. Got carved up a couple times. Bad angles. Namely, turn on and watch the Steelers versus Bengals game towards the end of the season. Bad angles all around. Poor tackling, right? So then the offseason happens. And you have the chance to, breaking news. Von Bell gets cut from the Panthers. You have the chance to add Von Bell, the guy who you tried to re-sign. You pounded the table for the Bengals to re-sign. Von Bell gets a chance to come back to Cincinnati. Von Bell, the same safety that was a part of your you know, your Super Bowl run and your playoff run and your playoff success. You have the chance to add that guy, familiarity. You're probably scorned and scarred a little bit from the communication. And you're like, I want guys that know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You tried the Nick Scott thing because that's what the front office gave you. As the third safety, that was what he was initially supposed to be. That didn't pan out. Go figure. Guy sucked. Sucked with the Rams too. So the offseason comes, you sign Von Bell. You had the chance to add a safety that had 7 interceptions the previous year against your division rival. Well, he's back in there. We signed that guy. Geno Stone's there. Now you're saying, Dax, we're going to find something for you on this defense. We're going to move you to corner. Let's see how you work out. It'll be a battle between you and DJ Turner. Cam Taylor-Britt obviously is going to be our cornerback one this year because he showed so much promise. What you didn't expect is that guy to regress a little bit and not take his job as serious and be out partying and being out clubbing and doing so much shit, right? And now Dax Hill finds a spot on this defense, and now he's playing great. And you're like, oh, snap. I've got my cornerback too, my 2 cornerbacks. I've got Cam Taylor-Britt. I've got Dax Hill. Maybe we should add a veteran cornerback. Nope, front office. No, we love what we got. You got DJ Ivey coming back off for torn ACL too, who, by the way, made a good play last week too. Yeah. Bear with me. I'm going somewhere. So Dax Hill tears his ACL, right? And then you're in a spot that you're in right now, and things look the way they look. Do we understand where I'm going with this? Like, I understand why Lou. It's not correct. I understand why Lou did play Von Bell over Jordan Battle to start. You were hoping to see consistency. You were hoping to see the communication, the biggest thing, be security. You think that you're adding a safety in Geno Stone, Von Bell, communication is going to be great. Veteran players know what they're doing. And it didn't shake out that way because it turns out Von Bell actually got cut because he sucks.
Yeah.
Still IQ still there. Yeah. But athleticism, he didn't have a lot of it, but it's gone. Speed, he didn't have a lot of it, but it's gone. So now you're in this spot in which you have a makeshift defense because the quarterback that you spent the first round pick on towards ACL. And there's nothing there to replace him. The guy that he was in a battle with that was getting cooked all offseason is now cornerback, next man up. So again, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. I understand you are what your defense says you are. But understand something. For us to understand how the defense got here, we've got to go back in time. This notion that they've shit the bed with Dax Hill's pick, no, it was the proper segue to where Dax Hill is now. Yeah. It didn't work out at free safety. Okay, we're going to move in the corner. He played way up corner towards ACL. It is what it is. This notion that the development has been so terrible. If there was no true development in Dax in this defense, they would have cut Dax Hill. They would have said, oh, we're trading Dax Hill. The pick didn't work out.
I think development is so much more with the position coaches, though. Those are the guys working with them on technique. Those are the guys coaching. I want to see this type of technique played week in, week out, right? Like, I want you in this situation to play it this way, right? We're going to work on these skills because they're important to me. I think this is important. But yeah, that's where I look at the D-line and I say, hey, okay, you've had quite a handful of guys that were not high picks, but 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks, right? You don't expect a high hit rate, but you don't expect to get nothing out of those guys, right?
Exactly.
You don't expect to see not any. Sure, you don't expect Zach Carter to ever be a top 10, top 15 defensive tackle, but do you expect him to look literally NFL unplayable for 3 or 4 straight years? No. Cam Sample has been solid since he got in here, but I think that's probably the best one you can look at where it's like, and Joseph Asai has been dealing with so many injuries, but I'm looking at more of these positional coaches when it comes to lack of development.
DB coach.
I'm looking at the front office for the selection of these players because not all of these guys are guys. They ask the coaches, hey, who are guys you like? But at the same time, they're trying to fit that into their front office plan. And sometimes guys get picked that you didn't necessarily want. But you got to now find a way to make them work, and they may not work well with your scheme. They may not have the skills that you want from a player at that position, and it's what makes it so hard to parse, right? Is because there's the front office, which is supplying you with what you need, the resources you need to win the games on Sundays. But then it's also up to your position coaches. Like, you're overseeing everything, you're supervising, but like, you're not working day to day on development with all of these guys. You just can't do it. So,
and Gary Jelson, 100%. He says, Xavier Howard comes in and now we good. From all my understanding, he had a great workout. Never asked for a 3-year contract. Front office just said, nah, we're good. From my understanding.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there might have been some off-field stuff that was,
I think
that was
so.
involved
I think
with
so
that.
too. But I think that to me, I think it's been as clear as day that the effort to keep things up on offense has definitely taken precedent over fixing the defense to a lot of degree. Your running back situation happens. You go out there and trade for a running back or 7th-round pick. What about fixing the defense to a degree? You knew what the defense was struggling at spots. You did nothing to progress that area.
There were lots of veterans to be had.
A lot of veterans to be had. We saw the Pittsburgh Steelers even try to get better, go out there, trade for Preston Smith. Listen, there are things that could have been done to try and help this defense. So
Chiefs had one injury and went and signed Steven Nelson, who I've been talking about since March.
Unretired for them.
Man,
it's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
I think that
Ravens signed Justin Houston last year or whatever, and he was snapping for them and just hey, I'm only going to come in for 10 snaps a game, but I'll get a sack in that time.
Yeah,
it's like,
I'll make it happen.
Yeah,
I got enough pass rush moves. Listen, we want to thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of State of the Jungle, the last regular season episode of State of the Jungle. We'll see if it is the last one of the Bengals season, right? Because we don't know if the Bengals will be in the playoffs or not. I think that there is definitely some inward looking the Bengals need to do as a front office. For me, I have a lot of thoughts on some stuff, and we'll get to all those because it's going to be a long off-season, long process. But we want to thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode of State of the Jungle. And Robert M says to me, why does he keep making that dumb faces? He's talking about me. I don't think he's talking about me. Rob, I appreciate you, man. I'll keep making dumb faces. Maybe I'll do that because this is my show, and I'll keep making dumb faces. If you don't like,
you might have been talking about me at that point.
Who knows? You just know you're not making any dumb faces.
I don't know. I can. If you really want me to, I can try.
I don't know. But we want to thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. We hope that you guys enjoyed the episode. We miss Daniel. We hope to see Daniel here soon. We'll see if he's
tough to tear him away from Cali.
Yeah, tough to tear him away from Cali. And Gary Jelson, as far as the morning show, we'll be back live on the morning show on Friday to gear up for Bengals versus Steelers and so much more. We hope that you guys enjoy your New Year's with your family. Be safe, be smart. Don't do anything too crazy. But we hope that you guys will continue to support the show, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. And by the way, it wouldn't be a show if I didn't thank you guys so much. It's been 18 weeks now, right? Of nonstop Bengals coverage. And we appreciate y'all so much for making us a part of your daily, routine on your Wednesdays. And hopefully we're your only live in studio Bengals show out there. I think we actually are, but we're the only live in studio Bengals show that you choose to watch on Wednesday nights. We appreciate y'all so much for joining in. I'll be live after the Bengals game on Saturday, come hell or high water, win, loss, or even a tie against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll be live. Stay safe. If you're in Ohio, get ready for this snowstorm that's coming pretty soon. Yeah, it's a snowstorm coming pretty soon. But thank y'all so much. We will see you guys next week on State of the Jungle. And until next time.